Hello everyone, welcome back to the show. It is my pleasure to host a very special guest today. He started his journey as an article in KPMG's founding years in India and rose through the ranks to become one of the youngest partners at the age of 28. And it doesn't stop here. He went on to become the head of audit of KPMG in India and also served as global head of accounting advisory services of KPMG Global. He has recently stepped down aside from his roles to build his own startup. He is none other than Jamil Khatri. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you. And it's great to be on the show, and thanks very much for the opportunity.
Many of my viewers are CAs or CA aspirants. So I want to start with, how did you decide to do CA and what were the challenges you faced that time?
So I think the decision to become a chartered accountant was driven by the fact that my father was an accountant, and I always thought that chartered accountancy was a very meaningful thing to do, and that's where I got into CA. So yeah, that was my journey into becoming a CA.
Got it. So you joined as an article in KPMG India. So what was work experience like at that time? Because it was early years of KPMG.
Correct. So I think the best thing really was, because it was a small group of people, you could do things end to end. And therefore you're responsible for many things. Today, unfortunately, in large organizations, people end up doing the same thing for many quarters. But because we were a small group, we had the opportunity to do end-to-end things at that time. So it was a great thing. A lot of new things to learn. So great learning, great bonding. Yeah, overall a great experience. Yeah.
Also, I've heard one story you always tell to the new joinees also. That story, if you can tell the viewers about
the whole guarding story. Yeah. So I think what happened is when I joined KPMG, I was a ranker. I had I ranked in my intermediate, and when I joined, I expected to do a certain level of work. But when I got to my first job, and my manager kind of told me, listen, there are all of these files out here, and you need to hold guard these files. And I didn't first quite understand, but then I realized that I had to open each file, each paper, and then put these stickies to make sure the paper doesn't tear off. Now at that stage, I had two choices. One is to say that, listen, this work is not worth my time because I'm a ranker. The other was really to look back and say, if anyways I have to do this, what can I gain out of it, or how do I make this more meaningful? And I chose the path to say, if anyways I'm going to hold guard these papers, might as well read what is written on those working papers. And I did that, and I tell you, that was a great experience. I learned a lot about the bank. It was a banking audit. I learned about the operations of different parts of the bank, and therefore when the next big responsibility came, I was very well prepared, because my functional knowledge as a intermediate chartered accountant was there. My knowledge of banking was established through some hardcore reading, and that really helped me. So I think what I learned from that experience really is that you will get thrown curveballs. You will have to do things which seem demeaning, which don't seem motivating. Ultimately, the power rests in your hand. What do you make out of them, and how do you then kind of make the most out of it? So that was a great experience for me.
So also, whenever as an article you join any big four or mid-size, there's always confusion which department to join, because when I cleared IPC, I've just studied some subjects and I don't know where my interest lies. How do you think about, like, if you want to give advice to anybody who's joining, what department they should join? How should they take that decision? I
think there are two paths here. One is you can say, listen, I know I have narrowed down on my area, and therefore I want to do only tax. Yeah. Or I want to do only transactions, and therefore do that. I think the benefit of doing your training in an area like audit is that it gives you a foundational understanding of how businesses are run, right? And therefore my advice to everybody, maybe there's a bit of bias out here being an auditor, is actually what I learned is it helped me to understand the entire process of how businesses run. What are the controls, how does everything work? And once you've done that, then you are in a much better position to decide your area of interest. So my own personal belief is that it's okay to start off on a more general level, because that then gives you an understanding of the pluses and minuses of everything, and then you can narrow down on what your specific area of interest is. And I think at KPMG itself, and I'm sure that's true for many other kind of organizations, many people who started in audit then went on to be very successful in deals, in transactions, in kind of valuation regulations in cybersecurity, information risk, right? While if they had started there, I'm not sure whether they would have had the ability to kind of move between things. So my vote is for audit.
I share similar experience because I started with Deloitte as in statutory audit department. I did for 1 year.
Correct.
So I understood how businesses are run. I've done in 3-4 companies, so I understood how businesses are done, how everything operates, and then I joined tax. So
Correct.
it was very better. Like for tax, I was better able to, because I understood how audit was done, how
Correct.
businesses run.
Correct.
Got it. Also, there's another question which comes to people is whether to join a big four or a small or medium size. How will someone take that decision?
Yeah. So look, frankly, it's a very personal decision. But let me tell you my experience. In my experience, the advantage of working in a large firm is that you get exposed to the largest companies. And again, going back to the point we were discussing earlier, is if your objective is to learn through practical experience, your learning levels are very different when you work with the best-in-class company. So I think it's a great platform. Second is you get exposed to working practices, which effectively will help you to deal with it. I think the only caveat I would say is that you have to be confident that you will be able to do all of this, handle the work pressure, and still clear your CA exam. Yeah. As I very famously said in many of my kind of when I address students, is that your first objective, and to be fair to yourself, is to clear your examinations. So if you're confident that you will be able to deal with the work pressure and deal with your examination requirements, then I think the large firms give you a very good opportunity for learning. That would be my take.
Got it. Understood. Also, even if you're working under pressure, then we already know that if you're working under pressure, then you have to study according to that. You're already prepared, because I've done my in KPMG, so I was already prepared, even if they work, but I have to clear my CA. That's my first goal to complete.
Correct.
Then I can do everything.
No, but having said that, I'll tell you, it's very important that every person thinks about their own interests. Not everybody is like that, right? So my advice would be everyone should think, what is it that they want to achieve out of those 3 years? If it's a combination of academics and learning, the large firms, but if you just want to single-handedly just clear your examination and you're not confident that you'll be able to marry, but that's really the trade-off for everybody.
Got it. Understood. Also, so as I mentioned that you became the youngest partner at the age of 28, I've never heard of this thing. And at that age, everybody is just figuring out what they want to do in their career. Like, how did you achieve that at such early stage? And what was your journey like? What you did differently than others that made you achieve that?
Yeah. I think 2 or 3 things. First of all, I'm a great believer that every situation is different. So I don't try to generalize, but I'll tell you what worked for me. I think the first thing is to make sure that you are doing things which will be the future, right? So one of the things that I was able to do very early on is look at the fact that US reporting and US listings will be the future, US GAAP at that time, or international reporting. And I started practicing that very diligently. I read a lot, I studied a lot, and that's how I became an expert in that area. Now that helps you to distinguish from hundreds of other people who may be equally hardworking but don't have that expertise that you have. So that's one. Second thing is always seek out, and I always sought out very good mentors. Now remember, good mentors are not sitting there waiting for people to come. They also want to see people who are dedicated, who are willing to do their part. So if you're willing to do that, seek out very strong mentors. And the third thing, which actually in my mind is honestly the most important thing, is you should be willing to take more responsibilities. You should be willing to do that extra effort so that you get the opportunity to do more. You may have heard this saying, which goes as with great power comes great responsibility. But I actually recently read a book which actually turns it on its head and says, with more responsibility comes more power. And I think people who are able to realize that if they are able to take more responsibility through more effort, their circle of influence will become bigger. And that's what happened with me. And that's how I went on to become fairly successful at a young age.
Got it. Understood. So also, as the ranks and roles evolve, the dynamics also changes. And you drove I think one of the most profitable practice of KPMG, and with thousands of people working in that team. So what were the challenges in managing such a big team?
Yeah, I think honestly for me, the challenge was never about managing the team. I think teams, and maybe we'll talk about that a bit later, but I think the challenges that you face, one is you realize that when you are in a big organization, you will face the politics of the organization. No organization is bereft of politics. There is politics everywhere. So, and that can be very frustrating if effectively you're not prepared for it. The second thing is the bureaucracy. where everything is slow, and there are different degrees of bureaucracy. That kind of becomes a challenge. And I think third is in the business that I was in, which is the audit and assurance business, regulators can be very volatile. Okay. And it's very important for you, whether it's regulators in India, regulators outside India, to be able to withstand the pressure, because they're doing their job, they're trying to expect something from you. That puts a lot of pressure. So I think the three big challenges would be, organizational politics, the bureaucracy at play, and making sure that you are ready to deal with factors which are outside your control. Yeah.
As you were working with in the audit field, so you have worked with a lot of top managements of private companies, public companies. How do you see them working differently, or any example you can give? Which are the companies which are very different in working or style, something?
So I've learned a lot from a lot of companies, but I'd like to maybe call out three different kind of attributes. I think first is values. I've seen great companies really adhere to their values come what may, and two of the organizations that actually I'll call out here are Wipro and the Mahindras. Actually, I've had the privilege of working with both these organizations very closely, and I've seen values being practiced, not just being put on posters. I've really seen values being practiced. So that's the first thing I'll call out. I think the second thing is the ability to produce great leaders. I was again privileged to work with ICICI Bank when Mr. Vagul and Mr. Kamath were kind of at the helm, and that leadership team and people who worked in that leadership team went on to be leaders in the financial services industry everywhere. You take any big organization of financial services, and there's an impact of the whole kind of team. So I think those are the two kind of big things that I'll kind of call out. And I think the third thing is a focus on processes and technology to get work done. And again, two examples I'll take there are Infosys and TCS. For anybody who understands finance, Infosys used to produce its audited accounts by the 10th day or 11th day of the month after the quarter. And for a global organization like them, it was not possible unless they had invested upfront in technology, in processes, and in people. So I've seen great organizations put that investment upfront, which then make sure that they get the outcome that they want. So those are three things that I would leave behind for people to think about.
Understood. So now coming to what you're working on right now. So you're working on your own startup right now. Tell us more about it. What's your vision behind it? And how did you make that decision to leave KPMG and do something on your own?
Okay, so two separate things. I think the first one on how I decided. I think I did as kind of you kind of called out. I spent 27 years in what was a very enriching experience with KPMG, and then when I had to look forward into what I call my second innings, and if I ever wanted to be an entrepreneur, this is the time, and this was the time. So that kind of was the real thinking, and the way I saw it is that if I wanted to do something different, I might as well create something of my own, which has a very distinct DNA. The analogy I draw is traditional manufacturing, where either you have the option to take something and shape it per what you want, or the 3D printing world, where you can effectively create something atom by atom based on your beliefs and what you want the organization to be. I chose the latter. In terms of what we are doing, as I put out on my LinkedIn post as well, by the way, the name is not Upgrade. It's just a working name. But basically what we're doing is that four thesis to what we are trying to do. The first one we feel very strongly is, if you look at the world of consulting and the world of advisory that is done across, I think it's ripe for technology disruption. For a variety of reasons, technology has not embedded itself strongly into the world of consulting, and we want to put technology first when we kind of look at any advisory work that we do. The second thing we strongly feel is that talent, particularly in places like India, should have the ability to work on global projects and serve global clients. And COVID has shown us, right, that it doesn't matter where you are or where the client is. So we played the copy, we kind of taken the playbook from the IT services industry, where we believe people sitting in India can provide very high quality advisory work, whether it's ESG, whether it's accounting advisory, to clients sitting in North America, irrespective of the fact that they are in different jurisdiction. The third thing, and which is a very big public debate right now, is the conflict between audit and non-audit.
Yeah.
And we believe that the time is right to create a consultancy only organization, which is really what we're going to focus on. And therefore, we have the ability to serve clients through the entire cycle and not really worry about potential conflicts if somebody were to be an auditor later on. And finally, we have decided to do this in a corporate structure, which means it gives us the ability to give stock options to our employees. And therefore, people who grow with the organization, not just partners, but directors, senior managers who effectively help in creating the brand and the business over time, will actually reap the benefits. So think of it, what Infosys created for its employees over the last kind of 3 decades. We want to be the same, be in a similar position to create in the world of consultancy.
Got it. So there's a difference. So when you were working in KPMG working environment, everything would be different. And now when you're working on your own startup, it would be very different working. How different you feel right now?
Yeah, I think at one level you are very empowered because you effectively can do things in a more agile manner. We can do things that we feel are right within the leadership team, within hours. Right, which is not possible in a big organization. So I think that agility kind of comes in. I think the ability to do things on a global basis, not worrying about networks or whose territory are you kind of working on, is again very it kind of really frees you up. At the same time, you have to be humble enough to say that you don't have a brand. You'll have to build the brand. Today, the people who will work with me may all of them have their own individual brands, but you have to really be humble enough to realize that your work will talk for itself. Unlike an established organization where sometimes the brand talks for the work, here your work will talk for the brand. And I think that's what you got to play for. So it's an amazing experience, and I'm very glad that I took the leap.
Wow, got it. So also we have talked a lot about Jamil Khatri being informal. So what is your life when it is suit off?
When it's suit off. So I actually have been known for having a very balanced lifestyle. Siddhant, you've been at KPMG, so you would have heard I never worked weekends for the longest time. I still am, because I really believe that there is no need for people to really kill themselves. You can manage your work and your life, and I continue to do that. I love spending time with my friends, with my family. I have a very close circle of friends. A lot of them are foodies, so we love eating out. We do that a lot. We travel a lot. So I love traveling. I love reading. I'm very prolific with my reading. I still read the old way with books, because I just have so much screen time in my working life that I like to kind of de-stress by reading a physical book. So I always read. You will see on my bedside 4 or 5 kind of books always. Also, I don't read about business and management. I think honestly, unless of course you're at a very early stage of your life where you would like to get the principles, but I think one of the things I learned is if you really want to learn something new, you have to go down to the foundational principles of anything. And that can only happen if you read very different topics. So that's what I do. I enjoy my weekends, I enjoy my holidays, and I'm very religious about that.
Got it. Understood. That's good. So any word of advice you want to give to the viewers?
I think just a couple of points. I think one is we are in a huge opportunity place in India. Huge. You would have read the note with McKinsey kind of put out that this is India's century. Now honestly, I don't know whether it's India's century or whatever, but all I know is the opportunities in India are tremendous. I think every professional, if they want to put their heart into the work that they do, if they in a very dedicated, committed manner with focus do what they have to do, they will be immensely successful. Whether you decide to do that as a part of a large organization, a startup, whatever that might be, I think that's great opportunity. But you need to take responsibility. I go back to the point of responsibility. If you take responsibility for your actions, I think you will get the outcome that you deserve. But it's an amazing journey. Very bullish on where we are as a country. Very bullish, where we are economically. So yeah, that would be my advice.
Yeah, I think even we are seeing a lot of growth coming in, a lot of startups coming in right now.
Correct.
Like earlier, parents never used to want their kids to do something of their own.
Correct.
Just go for a job or something.
Correct.
Now they've opened up. They can start something on your own also.
Yeah.
That's
yeah. On that, I want to share with you and the viewers. I actually got exposed to the VC ecosystem in India way back in 1999 when when it just started. And you know, I won't name you know, somebody from that industry who came down from Silicon Valley in Bangalore. I was moving to Bangalore at that time, and they tried to bring me into their industry. I ended up selling audit to them, and I became their auditors, still very close friends of mine. But I think the whole VC industry has just done so much good to India. Of course, there are excesses like everywhere else in the world, but I think if it wasn't for the VC industry and people who pioneered that industry, I don't think entrepreneurs such as myself and thousands of others would have had the opportunity to create and build what we have created today. So I think that's an amazing thing. The ecosystem of founders, startups, you know, angels and VCs, I think is really something we should all be proud of.
Yeah, and the whole ecosystem is also growing now.
Correct.
So let's we're moving now to the lightning round. I'll ask questions. You have to answer whatever comes to your mind.
Sure.
First question is, what is your management mantra?
So transparency, objectivity, and ultimately fairness. You have to be fair. If you're fair as a leader, people will trust you, and you need to communicate. So yeah, those are the principles I have lived by, and I hope to live by.
Okay. Biggest learning of your life?
With the right level of effort and dedication and responsibility, you can achieve anything.
One regret in your life?
I should have played a sport. I don't play any sport. I would encourage everybody. I still regret I'm too old, or maybe I'm not. But yeah, I think sports is something that I regret not taking up.
So, which Indian startups excite you?
Yeah, you know, I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think the ecosystem rocks. For me, the star is the ecosystem. And none of us would have been successful without the ecosystem. So that's really what excites me about India.
Your favorite watch? I think you have good collection of watches. What is your favorite watch?
That's great research to that. So Breguet is a classic, and Frank Muller for its complication. Love both of them. That's a Frank Muller. It's awesome.
Formals or casuals at office?
You know, I'm quite cool with casuals at office, business casuals, as long as they're smart. But I think the most important thing is you have to dress for the occasion. If you are going to work with clients or other people, you know, who are dressed formally, I think it's in your interest to be dressed in a formal manner. Other than that, I think you know, business casuals are pretty cool.
What is? So go to the last question. What is success for you?
Success is being trusted and being known and, you know, and recognized for the work that I do.
So thank you Jamil sir for taking out time for this show. I think there's a lot of learnings and interesting things we have talked about. I would wish you all the best for the startup, for the consulting firm which you are launching. Hope to read and learn more about it.
No, thank you very much. And like I said, I wish everybody who's kind of watched this the very best. And it's a great initiative and a platform for, you know, for people to kind of get to know each other. So thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.